here the adult child of an alcoholic life coach who is about to teach you a little thing about self-esteem. So let's get to it. So what is self-esteem exactly? Everybody wants it, but not many people have it. Self-esteem is not a given, which means that just because you're born doesn't mean that you're going to go through life and be able to create love of self. A couple of things that we have to be clear about is that self-esteem can only be attained, and how it is attained is by making that which is non-physical matter in the physical. So we have to learn to acknowledge self, and then in the world, in the material world, we have to learn to act on the honoring of self. So in other words, if I want to change careers, and I know in order to change a career, I need to take a special course, I might hear that, and self might be saying, okay, I want to change careers, and I know that I have to take XYZ course in order to try out for that career. If I do not make that which is non-physical, because that instinct is non-physical, self is non-physical, if I do not make that which is non-physical physical, or if I do not act on that impulse in the real world, in the material world, then it can't happen. Then what I want can never materialize. Worse, what happens when I have, or you have, or any of us have an impulse from higher self, when we have a desire that we don't act on, that we don't honor, it never gets materialized. But what ends up happening is self suffers. So self-esteem plummets. Why? You're not acknowledging self. You can only raise your self-esteem if you learn to get in the habit of acknowledging self and then acting on it. It's not enough. It's not enough to look at your environment and say, I hate my job sucks, and expect things to change. Now, in the contrast of, now you're experiencing this job that you hate, that you think sucks. Okay, that's not bad information, because in the knowing what you don't want helps you clarify what you do want. But unless you act on what you do want, your self-esteem cannot flourish. It just can't. Because it's like saying, I'm hungry. It's like a child saying, I'm hungry, and mom ignoring the child. How does that child feel? That child needs to be validated. That child needs something to happen in the physical world. That child needs mom to acknowledge this child's cry, which is non-physical. The asking of food it comes from a non-physical place. Hunger is non-physical in the sense that it's a sense, it's a feeling. But the child is experiencing this hunger, which is real. Now, it must be validated by mom in the material world. And then that child feels validated. It's the same thing with self. So if I have intuition, or if I have guidance and I ignore it, I'm ignoring self. Self-esteem plummets. If I want to, for instance, when I was writing my book, I had this ever since I was 7. I wanted to write a book. It sounds crazy, but it's true. And it wasn't until my life fell apart, I got divorced, I was taking care of my 3 children on my own. Family was miles and miles and miles away, that I understood that this was what I needed to write about, that process of coming through that and finding the courage to do something that scared the hell out of me, which is divorce the father of my children and start over all on my own. That was terrifying, but I knew that if I wrote about it, that I could help people. But it wasn't, if I did not every day wake up at 2:30 in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning and write a chapter or 2 for that book, the book would have never materialized. So self-esteem isn't about who we are. Okay, get clear. Self-esteem is about how we are. Self-esteem has nothing to do with who you were born to. Nothing. I don't care if you're sitting in a prison listening to this video. I don't care if you're a drug addict listening to this video. I don't care if mom's a drug addict, dad's a drug. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if you had the worst experiences ever in your life. You have a self. The issue is, how are you treating that self? So, for instance, if you are addicted to drugs right here, right now, and there's a part of you that you hear saying, I have to stop doing this. I have to stop doing this. I have to stop hanging out with John, or I have to stop hanging out with her. I have to stop going to that bar, or and you don't act on those instincts, your self-esteem plummets. You hate yourself. At least that's the way your brain interprets the information. I'm not enough to act on this. I'm not enough to bring that which is non-physical into the material world. And so it really is how you are. It's not about who you are, and it's not about who mom and dad have been or whatever. It's not about what you've experienced. It's about how you are. How do you treat self? What happens to you when you have impulses and instincts to change your life? Do you act on them? And it's not a matter of radically changing your life overnight, because this is a time-space reality. So time is a factor. So it takes time for things to materialize in the physical world. But we're not even talking about manifesting yet. We're just talking about getting you to learn how to come into alignment with higher self. When you have impulses and instincts to do better, and you actually take one step towards doing better, you become in alignment with everything that is possible on a quantum level. Everything's energy, right? So when you start lining your personal being up in terms of energy, when self begins to honor self, so when the non-physical part of you is realized through action, through the physical part of you, the material part of you, which is skin, your word. Remember, the Bible says, in the beginning, there was the Word. What does that mean? That which is non-physical, the desire, impulse to create this magnificent place, was non-physical first. And then it was in the Word. It was in the manifesting of the Word, putting it out there into the physical, that changed everything, that made everything possible. So what I'm saying is, until you make that which is non-physical, physical in this time-space reality in some small way, until you do that, your dreams cannot come true. Again, it's not about manifesting overnight. It's about taking deliberate steps, making deliberate choices every single day. This is a free will zone, folks. Your greatness is not a given. It's something you have to work for. Your emotional sobriety is not a given. This is a free will zone. You have to do the tough stuff to have the easy things happen in your life. You have to be willing to do the things that your mother and father weren't willing to do. You want greatness in your life? You got to be great. Okay? And making excuses for why you can't do X, Y, and Z to get better isn't great. That's not great. That's not where your potential lies. You have a self, you have a divine will, this is free will, and you have choice. It's not about who you are. It's not about what you look like or how much you have. It's about how you are, my friend. It's about how you are, and it's about the choices you make, and it's about you honoring you or you not honoring you. It's about you saying, I got to get clean, and taking one step today to get clean. And then you know what? Tomorrow, taking another step to get clean. It's about you setting up boundaries. Somebody rubs you the wrong way. Somebody makes you really feel bad about yourself, and it makes you want to escape the pain of the relationship. Then rather than drug, rather than drink, rather than shoot up, get away from that person. Take care of self. That's the way you take care of self. That's one giant step towards taking care of self. And I promise you that if you continue to do that, eventually you will have created this entire new world for yourself. But without you stepping out of the non-physical, meaning without you taking that which is non-physical, which is self. Self is non-physical, but it needs to be self-actualized, and it can only be self-actualized through the Word. It can only be self-actualized through an action step in the material world. And then what happens is when you honor self in the material world, self becomes actualized. It becomes actualized. Then you get the sense of pride. Now your self-esteem rises. That's the only way to successfully get some sense of self-esteem that's real, that makes you feel authentic. Anything less than that is not real, and it's not authentic. So if you're beautiful, don't worry. In time, you might not be so beautiful, because age is a part of all of our realities. If you are attaching your identity to something that's in the physical world, like your looks, eventually your identity is going to be no more. If you identify with money, if you identify with stature, if you identify with having the corner office with the big window overlooking the Manhattan skyline, all of this is temporary stuff. All of this can be taken away from you like that. 9/11 taught us that. Cancer teaches us that. Car accidents teach us that. Everything is temporary. Temporary. The only thing that's solid is yourself. You came into this world with the self, and you is leaving with yourself. You ain't leaving with those nice Gucci shoes. You ain't leaving with them. You ain't leaving with that fine man by your side. You're not. You're going out alone with you, only with you. So the purpose of this video is to raise your awareness about what self-esteem is and how to get it. And to help you understand that playing the victim and complaining and acting like you don't have a choice to do something small or something big to help you help yourself is not going to help you raise your level of self-esteem. Remember, your self-esteem is not a given. You got to work for it. You have to develop action steps that are in alignment with your instincts. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. And don't blame mom and dad. Don't blame mom and dad, and don't blame your sister, and don't blame Obama, and don't blame the economy. No way, no how. You can feel better about yourself right here, right now, but you have to make a choice, and you have to decide to be great. Decide to be great. Decide not to punk out. Decide to do whatever it is you have to do. Decide to never quit to be better than you were the day before. Decide, make a decision, commit to making decisions, because inaction is choosing to not take action. Not choosing is choosing to not choose. Acting like you don't have a choice is choosing to act like you don't have a choice. But the reality is, my friend, greatness is within you. It is. The real question is, are you going to act on it? Because only great leaders and only great people are people who have figured out that in order to be great and in order to inspire other people, you must act upon, you must do in the physical world that which is great. It can be no other way, my friend. Namaste.